Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Juice with the News. We have a very special episode.
It's
I'm
not that
Joe.
special. It's just us two. It's pretty lame.
Well, yeah, but it's special in the way that we're only talking about one thing for the entire episode. That is
One thing.
done in a
Only one thing.
episode. Only one thing.
That's pretty crazy. What is that one thing?
I don't know. Is there anything big going on right now in our country? Anything big
Um,
news we should talk about?
Meg Rib's coming back.
McRib is coming back with is the Shamrock
I don't.
Shake.
I don't even know if that's true. I thought I read that somewhere, and I just don't know. No, the freaking the election.
The
You know that
election.
one.
Yeah, that one. So, at the time of recording,
It
um,
is. What day is it today?
it's
Saturday.
Saturday, November 7th at 1:30, and so Joe Biden was announced president by various news sources about 3 hours ago.
Is this true?
So we wanted to wait so that we could talk about this with a more kind of um, learned opinion about what's going on. So, first things
So
first.
first things first.
What are your thoughts,
President elect.
President-elect?
What was your question?
My first question was like, what do you think of this?
Um, what do I think of this? I'm just okay. This is going to be a very opinionated episode. I'm sorry if you guys disagree with how either of us think,
Mhm,
but that's what you come for Jews with the news for,
mhm.
is for us to give our opinion on the news.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I'm happy that Donald Trump wasn't reelected.
Yes.
That is what I'm happy. I am happy that Kamala Harris has made history as the first female vice president, the first African American vice president, the first South Asian vice president, and what was the other one?
Um,
Something else
First vice president born, past
in Oakland?
1960.
Oh, maybe.
First
I don't know.
non-boomer.
But she made history.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
happy for that, and
Hot
I'm
takes
happy
with
that Trump didn't
Jack.
get reelected. You asked me what I was happy about.
I
That's what I'm
did.
happy about.
I'm happy about that too. Um, as far as the election goes, like not just the presidential election, like the entire election, what are your thoughts about that?
Oh, I could take it or leave it. I think personally, I think it just shows that the electoral college is dumb again.
Yeah.
It's outdated. It's it's not feasible, and it's not democratic. I think that's the key thing.
Mm-hmm.
The electoral college is not a democracy. So you can either keep the electoral college and recognize the fact that America is not a democracy, or you say that it's a democracy and you have every vote count.
Yeah. I think for me, like the way I felt about this election was like, we're losing seats in the House. We didn't win the Senate. Most of our governors didn't, win we didn't win any state legislatures, which are, crucial in affecting redistricting, right? So we got these big losses, but at the same time, it kind of feels like our country is taking this as a big win for the Democratic Party because Joe Biden won, and like
Right.
that is big, but like it doesn't feel kind of as big as I hoped it would have, just because it feels like Trump not being president is the only victory we got out of this, which
Right.
is probably like number one on my wish list out of all the things I would have wanted, but also
Right.
not, it didn't feel like enough for me.
So, yeah, we got the big goal, but everything else failed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you looked at the polls before, which I mean that's a whole nother issue that we can get into, but if you look at the polls, I think they were predicting a Biden victory. They were predicting Democrats to make up, or if not take over the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
at least make up more than just one seat. They were predicting the Democrats to uh, take more seats in the House. And if you look at what happened, Biden won, yes, That is true. Maybe not by some of the percentages in some of the states that you might think. They said Florida might go blue. That did not happen. They said North Carolina was going to go blue. That did not happen. Pennsylvania was supposed to be more of a landslide. That did not happen. Georgia was supposed to be more blue. That did not happen. Yes, it's still looking blue right now, but I'm just saying. Same with Nevada, same with Arizona, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like they got the presidential election kind of wrong, but they got the end goal right. And then the Senate, Democrats, I believe, have a net gain of 1 seat
One seat,
with
yeah.
the Colorado one,
Colorado and Arizona were
right?
both flipped, but then they
And
lost
then
Alabama.
Alabama, which I think that was predicted.
Yeah.
Um,
And there will be two runoffs, so there are still
in
two seats
Georgia,
yet to be called in Georgia. So there's a chance that Democrats pick up
can
two
get to
seats, but not
50-50,
likely.
right?
Um,
Do you think in that election that the Democrats will even get one?
no. I think when you look at it, when you look at like the Senate race right now, the Republicans were leading in both of those, and it was a runoff because neither got 50% of the vote,
Right.
but they were winning. And the reason why they didn't get 50% is because some people voted for third parties, which were mostly like libertarians. So those people, I believe, are most likely going to vote
You got to vote Republican.
Republican. And also, I think for Georgia especially, the reason why this is abnormally blue is because Joe Biden was running for this big election and Donald Trump, and it was like this big important election. So a lot of people showed up to vote for the presidential race. And I don't think anyone, I think less people are going to be as enthusiastic about two Senate runoff races.
Right.
But I don't think as many people will vote, which means I think that that will affect Democrats more in a negative way.
Right. Right. I mean, you saw the report that like Stacey Abrams like worked really hard to get like 800,000 people registered to vote
Yeah,
in Georgia.
crazy.
That is absolutely. Let's get a round of applause for her.
Round of applause. Stacey Abrams should be our next, governor of Georgia, president of the United States, everything, just all at once.
um. So yeah, the ultimate goal was a success. Everything else was a failure. I mean, if you look at like a lot of the state legislators, like governorship and stuff like that, I think Republicans either maintained or gained more control there too. So it really, I mean, the next 2 years for sure are going to be a gridlock. And
Hmm.
nothing really is going to happen. If anything was going to happen in the first place, it's just going to be even harder to do that now.
Hmm. Yeah, I think what also is so scary is what is so scary is that this election, especially at the state level, was crucial because with 2020 and the census, we're going to be redistricting, which means gerrymandering, and so we want Democrats to be doing the gerrymandering, but we can't do that unless we win key state level
Right.
positions, which obviously we weren't able to do, which means, states like Texas, states like Georgia, states like North Carolina, all that have a
Pennsylvania.
been
Was Pennsylvania blue? Did that stay blue?
no, yeah, Pennsylvania got a Republican state, right? All these
Yeah,
states that are, swing states are now going to be redistricted. So now there's going to be more Republican representation in the House. In those states, there's going to be, uh, just statewide. It's gonna affect um, those states in a negative way for the Democrats living there, for the country.
right,
Um, but so Joe Biden was announced the president because he
right.
won the electoral college, but that doesn't mean he is
That's
going to be president.
correct.
So that's something that people have touched on. So Donald Trump said he's not conceding. What do you think, that Joe Biden is still going to be inaugurated on January 20th? Or do you think there's
I
going to be?
think I think it depends on a few things. One, it depends on his Trump's court cases, which okay, to touch on that, I don't understand.
You don't understand the cases?
I no, I really don't. I
Like,
don't under I don't understand like what he's like trying like
well, in
does he
Wisconsin,
have any basis?
In
to actually
Wisconsin,
file a
he's just
lawsuit.
asking for a recount, which is
Right.
like right,
Which is legal
which is
because it
legal.
was within, or it was 1% or within 1%.
Yeah, it's in with 1%. But what's happening in Michigan, you're right, is so stupid that he's like saying that they didn't, his campaign staff didn't have access to like polling places, but like they didn't like prove what he meant, right? Like, like campaign staff aren't allowed to have that much access to begin with. So like I don't know what access he's talking about having been denied because
Yeah.
most campaign staff aren't allowed to like look over every single ballot or even touch a ballot like that. That's cause for a potential lawsuit if someone from the campaign even touches someone else's ballot. So yeah, I don't understand what's going on in Michigan. I know the judge ruled that it was going to dismiss it. I don't know if they're going to appeal or what, but
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
crazy to me.
So I think it depends. I think Trump definitely is going to wait out those court cases, whatever they may be, whatever ridiculous excuse he comes up with, whatever. Um, and if those come back, he has to concede at that point. I think if those come back and they're denied, or he can't get a ruling, or whatever, says like it was a fair election, whatever, there was no fraud, voter fraud, like whatever.
Mhm.
Um, he has to concede.
Right.
There's no other option unless he plans to not
Well,
give up power.
what else is scary is the electoral college, like we've been saying, is like not democratic. So like potentially what could happen is he doesn't win the lawsuits. He doesn't win the electoral college, but he can
The
get if he can,
electors that actually vote for the president.
right, so he can get the governor and state legislatures to basically appoint electorates that would vote for Donald Trump, which would be risky for the states that do that. But if states like Georgia, which have a Republican governor and a Republican state legislature, states like Pennsylvania, right, key states, if they are willing to go through with it, we could have a legal victory for Donald Trump, despite the fact that he lost the popular vote. He even lost the electoral college. Like the people are saying, we don't want him to be president, and he could
And
still
he could still
very
get
legally
president.
end up as president of the United States, which I don't know. I hope that's not going to happen, and I don't feel
I
like it
don't
will
think
happen.
that will happen.
But
I don't think it
you're
will.
never quite sure anymore.
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's always going to be a hint of doubt until Joe Biden gets sworn in on.
If anything, if we've learned anything from these last 4 years, is to expect the unexpected.
Yeah,
At this point, like, yes, I don't think that will happen, and I will stand by that belief until I'm proven wrong.
yeah. So
And you go.
go ahead.
No,
Okay.
no.
So something interesting is that, knock on wood, Joe Biden becomes president. Um, an important decision he'll have to face is whether or not he wants to prosecute Trump. So no one can really prosecute him while he's president because, as the head of the executive branch, he's pretty much in charge of the criminal justice system, right? Like he is in
Right.
charge of that.
He
So
is
no one
the
can really.
leader.
He has the ability to fire prosecutors and all that. So he can't really be prosecuted while he's president, but he absolutely can be tried and sent to prison once he's left office.
Right.
So do you think Joe Biden will end up prosecuting, or do you think he'll just decide like, no, it's time to move on. We're not going to try to prosecute.
Um, I think he will move on. I can't remember what I was watching or if I read it somewhere, but like it was a quote from Jill Biden. God bless you.
Thank you.
Um, it was a quote from Jill Biden, and she said, the thing about Joe is that he forgives really easily. He forgives and he forgets.
Hmm.
So that's what I think is going to happen. And I think, I mean, yes, I think what Trump did was illegal, but from a unity standpoint, it makes sense for Biden to not
Right.
prosecute him, because I think Biden's whole thing is that he's trying to bring the country together, not divide it apart more, which is which I think to do that you don't prosecute the person that the Republicans love.
Right.
I don't agree with it, but it makes sense from a political standpoint for Biden to not do that.
Yeah, it's in this interesting position because by not prosecuting, it almost sends a message that says you really can do pretty much whatever you want as president and there will be no consequences because, whoever becomes president after you is not going to want to spend the time and energy to prosecute you, especially because if, he can't get prosecuted if he doesn't win that if the United States doesn't win that, charge, then that would be a huge loss for Joe Biden to go through all that time and money and then to lose. So you're right. I don't think from a political standpoint it's a smart idea to prosecute Donald Trump, especially for, Biden's own personal political views. But it does kind of put our country in this interesting position where, the executive branch, the head of the executive branch, what's supposed to be the weakest of the three branches, is pretty much immune from, any sort of wrongdoing, any sort of justice.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think he's. I don't think he. I don't think he will.
Yeah.
But I hope he does. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's scary that like a president can just come into office, do whatever the hell they want, and leave and just be like, oh, cool, let's
Yeah.
just go golfing more.
Let's be fair. He golfs so much during president. I don't know how he can top his golfing.
Well, he
Ability.
had to be like at the White House. He had to do like meetings with like foreign political leaders. Now he doesn't have to do that. Now he can only golf.
Now he can only golf. That's real.
Hey, Trump, this is a blessing in disguise for you,
Yeah.
bro.
I mean, he never, like, we know now that he never wanted to be president. Like, we have people saying, like, who are part of his campaign early on, that, like, his plan was never to be president. It was just to use this as a way of making more money, getting more, more attention for his TV shows, that he does. And yet, he is like he is just so stubborn that he's like this kid who, like, when you hear when someone says no to him, he's just like, I want it, I need to have it, I will,
Yeah,
do whatever it takes to get it.
yeah,
Oh my
it
God.
is. Moving to kind of the future. I don't want to look ahead too much, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe we could delve into this topic a little bit. 4 years from now, another election happens.
Mm-hmm.
From the Republican Party standpoint, how do they recover if they want to go in a different direction, or how do they continue the Trump legacy?
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting. I think, well, honestly, I'll answer your question first. um I think that if they want to go in a different direction, there are a lot of solid options, none of whom I think we actually know or pay attention to particularly well. So there are a lot of governors like Phil Scott, who's the governor of Vermont, I think, who's a Republican. He's kind of like this very moderate Republican governor who, won in what is a pretty democratic state of, Vermont, the state that elects Bernie Sanders. So I think he's a potential option. I think there are lots of I think when it comes to, there are a few senators that come to mind, such as Chuck Grassley is not. I wouldn't call him moderate. He's ideologically is really conservative, but he is a way. He's kind of like on the opposite end of Trump, where he'll never say anything really controversial. He'll never like make a big name for himself by doing anything that will like upset anyone by the way he talks. But what he will do is he'll enact lots of policies that are maybe a little extreme in the Republican Party, which I think is going to be a really good option for the Republicans because they like to, do bad things, but sometimes they don't like doing it so publicly sometimes. So that's one option. I think if you want to go in the Trump route, there are even more options. Ted Cruz comes to mind. He was on track to be president before Donald Trump came, or to be the nominee. I think they're right now he looks like the number one option to me. there might be other people. I do think that there will also. I think that Joe Biden won't run for a second term. He'll be 81, so I think the Democrats will have to find someone as well.
I agree.
What do
Which
you think?
I think I agree with what you're saying. Like there are options on both sides, and I think the next election, like during like the primaries, you'll have whether it's 1, 2, maybe 3 Trump candidates
Mm-hmm.
versus however many like non-Trump candidates. I don't think the Republican Party is going to rally it behind one person until they see like what like the actual people want, until they see like what happens in like Iowa in the first primary.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm wondering personally. You say Trump from like, or you say Ted Cruz from like the Trump side, like he's in a good position. I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Does Donald Trump Jr. run?
No, Donald Trump Jr. I mean, maybe, but he has never been. He is not an idiot. Like Donald Trump is an idiot. He is not an idiot, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
think being president is something he wants. I think he knows that he can do a lot more. He can be of a lot more influence by not being president and just using his money, his family's money, to kind of finance lots of different operations outside of the realm of politics. If you're rich enough, you can almost have the influence of president of the United States without this public scrutiny of it. So I don't think he will run. I think if he does run, that creates a really interesting opportunity because he isn't he doesn't have Donald Trump's charisma, but he does have the family name. So I think it'll be interesting
Right.
to see how he does.
Uh, do you think Ivanka runs?
I mean, I feel like she is more likely than him just because she's a bigger part of she's a part of the administration, whereas Donald Trump Jr. runs the business. I honestly I don't know if
Okay,
he would want to.
sorry, real quick. Bruh, this window's so stupid.
It's weird. Do you wanna go try and fix it?
Nah,
I mean,
it's fine.
you wanna turn to the side a bit? Yeah.
That's not gonna help. I'm gonna close it real quick.
Okay. By the way, we're keeping all of this in the final one.
All right.
Oh, that's better. That's better.
Okay, I'm back.
Good job.
Continue.
Okay, yeah. So no, I don't think Ivanka's gonna run. I think Jared Kushner might, honestly.
I was gonna ask.
Oh,
That
I'm
was gonna
so
be my
sorry.
last person.
Oh, I'm
But
sorry.
you
Wait,
ruined
ask
it.
it. Just ask it.
You think Jared Kushner's gonna run?
Oh my goodness, now that you mention it, of course I do. I didn't think of that before, but that makes so much sense now that you say that. I think he's perfect. I don't know if he'll win, but yeah. What do you think?
Do you actually think he's gonna run?
I don't know. I think he's the most likely out of the three, in my opinion. Um, yeah, what do you think?
I think Donald Trump Jr. is gonna run.
Oh,
I don't know
really?
why I think that. Like I don't have any basis.
What about Eric?
That's just my gut feeling. Eric's a nobody, bro.
Eric's a no. What about
Eric's a nobody.
what about Barron?
I was gonna say like in the future, like 30 years down the line,
Yeah.
does Barron Trump run? It depends. It depends.
No,
But
the
probably
answer is
not.
no.
But probably not.
Yeah.
Another question: does Donald Trump run again?
Probably.
Do you think he
Honestly,
would?
I think he would.
Yeah.
And I
So that
think he'll.
negates like any of his family members from running then.
Yeah. I, I, he's a sore loser. I think this is gonna haunt him until the day he dies. I think if
I
he
mean,
does.
in his own words, he lost the worst political candidate in history.
Yeah, exactly. I think that if he does run again, he'll get the nomination. I don't know if he'll win again, depending on how badly Joe Biden Joe Biden
Right.
does. That's what.
But what we said before, and I agree with, is that Biden's probably not going to run again. He's doing this for 4 years. So that also leaves turmoil within the Democratic Party and how that's going to look. I'm wondering if Kamala Harris, she probably will be put in the best position to be the next nominee. Depending on how this presidency goes, if there's any scandals, that will be bad for her.
That will be bad.
But like again, we're talking about it in the future, so we're assuming that like things are like going in the direction that they probably should.
Yeah.
So that leaves Kamala. I'm wondering
I think
about
Elizabeth
Bernie.
Warren, Bernie.
I'm wondering how like it's all gonna shape up. I'm wondering if Cory Booker's gonna run again. I
Maybe
think that
he
would be
might have a better
intriguing.
shot.
I think that would be intriguing. I'd like to see him back up there
Michael
personally.
Bloomberg?
Michael
No.
Bloomberg would be very interesting. Whatever.
Uh,
Maybe Andrew Yang comes back.
maybe Andrew.
I mean, there
Tom
maybe
Steyer,
and there's probably gonna be a bunch of people that like that didn't run last time that are gonna run this time,
yeah.
and it's gonna be a very interesting election period again with two primaries going on. I think in 2016 when we had Obama leaving office and the Republicans were doing their primaries and the Democrats were doing their primaries, the Republicans had the fun and
Mm-hmm.
had all the candidates freaking yelling across the aisle. Well, the Democrats, I mean, there were other people, but it was just Hillary or Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
So it really wasn't that much of like a primary is just two people. I think in 2020 or 2024, Jesus, 2024, it's going to be where both parties have like 8+ candidates and it's going to be chaos, and that's going
Absolute
to be fun
chaos.
for the country.
Oh yeah. 2024, the shitstorm.
That's that's the name of our episode.
That's the name of our episode.
No. On a more local scale, I think we should dial it back to end the election on a more local scale.
Mm-hmm.
You live in Missouri 1, right?
Yeah, first congressional district.
First congressional district. Cori Bush won the nominee. No surprise there after she
She
beat
crushed
Lacey
it.
Clay in the primaries.
Yeah,
Good for her. I'm excited to see what she does.
me too. She became the first Black woman to represent Missouri in
Yeah.
Congress.
Mm-hmm.
She is, she is part of the squad or whatever they call themselves, and
I think it's the squad.
the squad. I think she's gonna do great things. I think that she represents the first district of Missouri incredibly well, for a district that is, ravished with, the vast majority of people living in the first district are poor. It's one of the poorest districts in the country. It's one of the most violent districts in the country. So I think what we need is someone to represent us that's actually going to represent us, instead of, Lacey Clay, who just cares about ensuring that the buffalo is still the national mammal. So I'm excited. But yeah, you live in the second congressional district.
I
That
do
was a
live in the
tough
second,
race.
the worst of the two
That was a tough race
in
you
terms
lived.
of election. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Ann Wagner was reelected. Um, she is the
Beating Jill Shoup.
Republican. She beat Jill Shoup, who was the Democratic candidate. I think going into this, people thought that like Jill Shoup actually had a decent shot at overturn or flipping the seat. Um, but that obviously wasn't the case. I think it was definitely by a margin that people weren't expecting. It went more heavily in favor of Ann Wagner than people thought.
Yeah.
It sucks because I mean she doesn't really Ann Wagner. I don't feel like cares about the people.
Yeah. I mean, she doesn't
Um,
show her face.
she doesn't show her face.
She just runs
Well,
attack ads.
yeah, that's all. That's all she did, and she didn't even do that to the end. I don't think she spent like any money on her campaign until the
Mhm.
end. She did the same thing last year or last 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years ago, same election. I don't know. She's just not my favorite. So that sucks.
Yeah.
Another thing, on a Missouri level, we can talk about the governorship first.
Governorship. So Nicole Galloway ran against Mike Parsons. People were actually thinking, everyone kind of thought that Mike Parsons would win, but people were kind of
Right,
thinking it'd be maybe a little closer than
a
it
little
was.
closer than it was.
Mike Parsons didn't do the best when it came to handling the COVID crisis. So, but he ended up winning fairly
Yeah,
easily.
fairly easily.
Um, So yeah,
Which I mean makes sense. I'm not gonna like complain about it because I think that was the expected outcome.
mhm. I,
Um,
it it puts Missouri in like this interesting, for a long time we were a swing state, and we've been slowly transitioning to, kind of almost like a deep South state in many ways. Like we're now very Republican. We don't have any Democrats in any of the elected state offices. Um, so that's a little frightening. And so now we're in this position where, Missouri Democrats, there are no people, obvious people to kind of run for any of these positions anymore. Every state level position a Democrat will run for, it's going to be like twice as hard to win that election.
right.
So it's going to be very
So it's
interesting.
looking like Missouri is gonna stay red forever,
Forever, or until red becomes blue.
or until red becomes blue. Also, another thing that happened in the election, what was it, Amendment 3?
Amendment 3, that was an amendment that advertised itself as kind of like a cleaner campaigning act, but ended up being mostly about trying to actually make it more easy to gerrymander for the Republicans. So it advertised itself it claimed it would limit campaign contributions, but
Even though those campaign contributions were already limited.
right, and it only limited it further by only $5.
Right.
And so it was really upsetting. It lost 51-49. It was a really close race. Ultimately, I think it was advertised as a
Yeah.
cleaner campaign amendment, which made it.
So it was 51 yes, 49 no. And you brought up a statistic yesterday
Yeah,
that I did not know, but how much money was spent on the No on Amendment 3 campaign?
yeah. So they spent $5.3 million on the Amendment 3 campaign to vote no on it. They spent $0 on the yes campaign. So they didn't spend any money on the yes, which means that the people who voted on it aren't reading the fine text. They look at it and they say, "Oh, it's a clean campaign bill. I like reducing, campaign contributions. I like, all these things that seem good at face value." And so they don't actually read the text, which
Mm-hmm.
honestly is what most people do. What's upsetting is that we allow the ballots, the election officials allow it to be worded in this very sneaky way on the ballot.
Right.
That shouldn't be allowed if because you're trying to trick the voters at that point.
Right. And
Um,
that's exactly what they did. I think last election, the same thing was on the ballot, the same amendment.
mhm.
Uh, and, but it was written in a different way, I think.
Yeah,
It was like written in its like base way. And I think if you voted yes on it, then like you were saying, was it the same thing where if you like voted yes, like you get that amendment passed? If you voted no, then it doesn't pass, or was it flipped?
I
It
don't
wasn't. It was. I think it was flipped for some reason. I don't know. I
maybe.
don't remember the correct wording. I didn't vote, so I didn't like physically
Yeah,
read it. But basically, the amendment I think was flipped. So if you voted yes, you were saying like they should not be allowed, and if you voted no, they're saying they should be allowed. And yes won. So the amendment shouldn't, or the amendment that was just passed in this election was a rewrite of the previous one because the Republicans said like, oh, people didn't understand what they were voting for. We're going to re-put it on the election except for reward it so we can manipulate them into voting the way we want them to,
hmm
which is terrifying that they could just choose to do that. It's just like,
yeah,
oh, the state decides that they don't want this. Well, let's rewrite it and maybe and have them vote for it without them knowing.
yeah, exactly.
I think I guess we're ending it on that note. That's tough. That's
Yeah.
tough.
All right.
Um,
Well,
Eli,
yeah,
2054 or whatever freaking election are you running?
no,
Oh, darn.
I'll
I
be.
would vote for you.
You would vote for me. I'll be running as Secretary of Treasury.
Secretary. Wait, in Missouri?
No, for the
The
country.
cabinet.
Yeah.
The cabinet? You can't run for that. You have to
No,
go
at
to
that
court.
point in time, there'll be an amendment in 27 or 2043 that'll be passed, that makes the cabinet an elected position. and so then I'll be elected Secretary of
Do you think the cabinet should be elected position?
No,
So why are you saying that there's going to be an amendment that passes that?
because I can know the future. Duh.
Obviously, like,
Obviously.
I mean, come on. This was a slightly longer episode
Yep.
than some of our normal ones, but I think it was good. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
For the two of you that made it all the way to the end, thank you
The
so
two
much.
of you. Should we give them something if they made it all the way to the end?
If you let us know in the
Yeah,
comments.
no, don't let us know in the comments. DM us on Instagram, and we will give you a prize.
Yeah. All right. That's it.
Sounds good. All right.
Bye.
See ya.